Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast, a conversation aimed at understanding all sides of mental health, addiction recovery, and homelessness. Each interview will include one's personal experiences and insights, or an expert's advice and knowledge within one of these fields. The goal is to promote awareness, guidance, and support for anyone who is affected by these challenges. Thank you all for listening. Welcome to the Mental Insights Podcast. This is your host, Brendan.cutuli, and we're here today for Season 2, Episode number 26 with Anthony Vaughan. Anthony Vaughan is a professional within the human resources field for businesses and entrepreneurs. Anthony knows the impact of morals and values and how they can play within the work environment and their business within clients. Anthony will be joining the Mental Insights podcast to speak about work challenges and where he can facilitate growth within a healthy work environment. Anthony, thanks for taking this time to be here on the Mental Insights podcast.
I appreciate that. And that was a beautiful intro. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Anthony. Just to really kick off on terms of our, second, true conversation delving into these topics. Within the first one, I think, I felt a lot of your energy. I felt your desire to want to help others, whether it's, just in terms of their own health and translating that into the business field. And, within the second part of this episode, we'll really dive deep into that. But within this first part, let's just speak about your own personal experiences, what really brought you to the place that you are today and, what challenges you've been able to overcome today. So to really start off, when we're speaking about where you began, and then we're going to be speaking about where you have transitioned, to really start off in your own life, what was your dream job growing up? Like, did you have any aspirations towards something else that maybe was different than what you've been experiencing today?
Um, I wanted to be first my dream job was to be in the NFL. I played football my entire life. I actually got I got two different types of scholarships. So I originally got a scholarship to play D3, and then I inevitably went on to play D1. And then I actually played I guess some form of professional football. It was as a tier 2, a kind of arena type thing, like 400, $500 a week. So, but my original dream was that. But as I got older, I realized the talent wasn't going to be there to be able to reach that level. So I actually wanted to be a sports agent. I always realized at a really early age my ability to argue and to convince people that my perspective was not right, but like my energy would actually get them on board with my perspective and bring some realization to their overall perspective. And then I would remember so many moments where my mother even would be like, "Wait, aren't I the parent?" Or like, "Wait, why are you convincing me that this is the right thing to do when I know for a fact this isn't the right thing to do?" And so I just remember all those times growing up. And so I figured I would couple my ability to get individuals excited about my ideas with my passion for sports, and become a sports agent. But that never happened. So.
Thank you for sharing that, Anthony. I think everybody will be able to see, your passion and your ability to convey your message, your perspective within, this interview to come, because just having these conversations, you can tell that you have that charisma, you have that passion and integrity all mixed within to be able to, bring towards that light. And, as you are experiencing these things, I think this happens to so many people. You start out with this one aspiration, some experiences happen, some challenges happen, they move you to the next. And why don't you speak about, how some of these experiences were able to, change your passions, change your interests, and, how did that transition into, where you are today?
Yeah, so those two circumstances really have nothing to do with what I'm doing now, if I'm being honest. I guess, I guess I can give a brief background to people about, like, I guess who I am and what it is I actually do. And so right now I run a company called the E1B2 Collective, which stands for Employees First, Business Second. It's a collective of brands. Think of a holding company. and then it's a collective of practitioners. So I have 4 co-founders, and there's another 30 or 40 people within the collective. And our entire goal is to improve the world of work through mental health, through just simply making sure the employee experience within the day-to-day of their role and their job is not only fulfilling professionally, but mentally they are feeling good. Mentally they are stable. Mentally they feel like they are in a tribe and comfortable and safe. And so that's what I'm doing now. But I guess how it led up to this situation and some of the obstacles I faced is I started a business at 19, and so I dropped out of university after my sophomore year due to my dad passing away, and I started a business which was a year-round football academy. And after that business getting to a really, really nice place where I was able to move out of my home as a child, you're 19, you're a kid, so I was able to move out of my home, move about an hour north with my girlfriend and do a lot of great things. And I made a really, really poor decision with one of my coaches. I didn't understand succession planning. I didn't understand employee experience at the time. I didn't understand any of these things. And I didn't take my own, I didn't take my own advice. I didn't cultivate that experience. I didn't make that individual feel safe. I didn't make that individual feel warm and comfortable and welcomed and part of a tribe, and really wanted to learn what he wanted to inevitably be. And he left the business. And 4 months later, the business went to zero, mainly because of that reason. He's a phenomenal guy. He was a linchpin to all the big contracts that we had. And so that moment really shaped, kind of what I'm doing now, and really put me in kind of a depressed state that I inevitably turned into a positive because I'd started to study and research and figure out what I did wrong. And that inevitably led to where I am now, where, I've started this is my third business, and I've had the opportunity to do a lot of great speaking and consulting. And now I'm in a decent place where I'm trying to finally get a grapple on what this whole thing of life really means, and trying to, do my part to try to bring some value to the world.
Wonderfully said, Anthony. I thank you for sharing that. It certainly puts into light of, what you've been able to learn throughout this process, and you've learned through trial and error. You've learned through seeing how other people experience this, and even within your own perspective, you did share about how you realized it through one other's experience it, and how that kind of related into your own ability to even, have this company. But in terms of yourself, what impact did you see within your own mental health as you were going throughout this process? And could you just share about why being present, why having, this relationship of integrity, of respect within employees is so important within the workplace?
Well, it's important to me first and foremost because I literally made a mistake based off of that, right? Like for me, the reason why it's so key is I lost an entire business because of this variable. I don't think people really understand when you're running a small business or a startup, every single employee, let's call it 0 to 60, are so valuable, are so key, are so important, are so strategic. They're not just easy to replace. They're not just these pieces, these pawns you can just play around with, that a lot of leaders kind of feel like that's the case. So I literally lost the business due to that. And it put me in a depressed state. So that's what kind of connects me to this space, because I personally have experienced these variables. Now, as I started studying and learning, I started to realize that it's completely common sense to live into an employee's reality. And what I mean by that, it's completely common sense to understand and unpack where they want to go. It's completely common sense to understand and unpack where they want to go and try to do anything in your power to get them there, not even thinking about the selfish needs and desires of your own individual business, just doing the right thing. The right thing tends to be a good idea in most circumstances. And so for me, when I look at mental health as it pertains to employees, I immediately think of a couple of things. First and foremost, if you aren't the type of leader that feels like, mental health and employee experience and all these other buzzwords are really important to you, at a very practical logical level, it's a good business idea to make any of your employees feel psychologically safe. That's just a good business idea because there's so much data that proves their ability to have innovation, their ability to drive productivity will increase well over 50%. That's just a good idea. But let's call it you're actually a good person, which a lot of leaders tend to be in their everyday life, but they put on this like suit and this just like new version of themselves when they go into the workplace. So let's assume you are a good person. It's also a good idea because do you have any idea how much time you actually spend at work? Do you have any idea how much baggage people bring home from bosses that are rude, bosses that micromanage, bosses that ignore their ideas, bosses that are not putting together learning and development plans that are connected to where they inevitably want to go long term in their career, thus they feel stifled? Do you know what happens when they come home and they drive that negativity to their husband, to their wife, to their kids, to their own brain? Do you know the damage that that does to your own self-confidence at a real level inside of your brain, and what it does to some of the memory banks inside of your brain, and how it can unlock all of the other negative feelings and perspectives and viewpoints you have of yourself? You can get in a very deep rabbit hole. And so as I've studied and as I've learned, that's what really got me excited about trying to make sure that organizations that I built and the organizations that I impact, they understand these variables and they think about these variables, because life is not a game. And the last time I checked, you have a bunch of lives walking inside of your business day to day, trying to make your dream come true, leader. So it's a good idea to care about them just as much as you would care about your dad, your mom, your sister, your son, your daughter. I went on a
Wonderfully
rant
said.
there.
No, it's needed, Anthony. It's something that I think a lot of people are facing today because they're in a position of, as we were speaking about having passion for your work, some people feel like they're not passionate about their job. And from my perspective, I think a lot of it can be due to the work environment. And if companies were more willing to provide, the resources, the support in order for someone to feel like they can separate, the work from home, where they can feel like, they have support even at the workplace, then they would have more passion for the work that they're doing. They'd have more passion to, you know, provide more productivity, to be more, aware and present in terms of their everyday, and not having that, conjunction of work and home, and of not feeling like they're doing enough. And that drags them down so much. And, obviously having a great work environment won't necessarily provide that full passion towards your work, but it can help. It can assist a little bit for you to feel like you know, you're more accepted, you're more willing to do the work when you're at the workplace. And in terms of that, how have you seen the, effects of being at a workplace that doesn't have this support, doesn't have, you know, any type of resources to provide for someone to be, mentally healthy or even just supported? What have you known, whether it's from your clients or even your personal perspective, of how damaging that can be within not only their productivity or passion towards the work, but as well, as you were stating, that work and home relationship of bringing back that home? How important and how much impact does that have on somebody?
It can tear someone's life apart. I'll give you some very real examples that I have no qualms of sharing with you guys, because um, the individual that I'm going to talk about is a partner in my business, and I love him to death, and he'll be comfortable with me sharing some components of it, and I'm not going to divulge everything. And then I personally experienced something as well. So number one, the answer to your question really quickly and simply, it can literally tear your life apart at a very real level. And what I mean by that, for the examples I'm going to give, is there were experiences about 7, 8 months ago before COVID-19 hit. I want to be very clear with something. Before COVID-19 hit, I had a job. I was not an entrepreneur. I was thinking about strategizing about starting this new business. Even when me and you met for the very first time, the podcast was alive. Some of the personal branding things at a very high level, just trying to get out there and do a couple things, were intact, but I was not in full entrepreneur mode. So I was actually an employee, the VP of people, director of partnerships for a nonprofit here in Maryland. And we had a leader that was not personally developed himself. So that's the first tip that I know is a little bit outside the box of this original question that I would give and that I would have a lot of people think about. Are you personally developed yourself before you actually become a leader, or if you are a leader? That is first and foremost. Like, do you have full self-awareness of who you are? Do you have a full grapple in your own emotional stability and ability to understand other people's emotions? Do you have enough awareness around emotions to know when to pause, to know when to push, to know when to hold back, to know when to readjust your tonality when working with an individual based off of how much they can take and how much they can't take, what their personal circumstances are at that time? Are these things a factor? So to get very granular, the gentleman that I'm talking about that's a partner in my business and myself, we were two individuals that literally just wanted to help this business survive and thrive. That was our goal. That was our passion. And we were led by a leader that was very micromanaging. We were led by a leader that was very suffocating. We were led by a leader that had very poor personal development attributes within themselves, that was very scared of their own reality and their own issues internally. And that came out on us. And there were so many moments where tears were shed. Bodies were starting to literally physically feel different due to the amount of high level of stress. There were moments where words were said that people would admittedly want to take back. And that put us in very serious circumstances where our own significant others were literally putting us to the point where, like, we're going to consider not dating you if you don't make a change in this job, because the person that you're being outside of the workplace is not someone that I thought I wanted to date and marry and have a family with. And I just don't respect you right now at a personal level for even withstanding and living into this reality. This is not okay. This is not right. And it was my job to try to fix that, and I couldn't. And so the biggest tip that I would give, again, based off of my story there, is, are you personally developed as a leader? And if you are not, I genuinely believe in my heart, you do not deserve to be a leader of people. If you do not have any sort of awareness of emotional intelligence within yourself and how to understand others' emotions at every single micro moment of a day, you do not deserve to be a leader, because you have no idea how much you can really change and negatively affect someone's life.
Raw and honest, Anthony. I appreciate it. It certainly shows in terms of, from your own personal experiences, but I believe a lot of people listening are going to have similar ones. It's something that happens throughout, any different company, whether it's a large corporation or whether it's a small business. This is something that is going on throughout the workplace today. And it's not even just having the ability to really support and provide the resources. There's things that are even happening at home that are affecting someone's, ability to, manage and lead their own team. And there's so many different ways in which people are getting pulled throughout, the challenges today. And as you're speaking about it, if you can't step up, if you can't have that ability to lead, then you should be in those positions, because that's where the challenges come into place. That's where, these struggles happen, and it leads to a spiraling effect towards not only the leaders, but the people below them. And it, as you said, could tear someone's life apart. As you've said, it could tear a business down. There's many different effects that can come into place due to this. So, I want to thank you for sharing that, and for everybody for listening to this part of the episode. In the next part, we'll be speaking more about what Anthony is doing today with his own business and how he is helping others through their own work experiences and uplifting them to have the right mentally healthy space within their own work environment. So thank you, Anthony, for sharing those, raw and touching experiences that you've had, and, really sharing what people are facing today.
100%, Brendan.
So thank you all for listening. This was season 2, episode number 26. And be sure to click the link below in the show notes to get in touch with Anthony if you have any other questions, need any other resources to take that next step within your work environment, if you are having similar challenges within your workplace today. And be sure to tune into the next episode, where we'll be speaking more about how Anthony can help you in your own workplace. Thank you all for listening to today's episode of the Mental Insights Podcast. Make sure to reach out to today's guest or myself if you need any advice, guidance, or support in your life today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and review to this podcast so we know what you thought of this episode. I look forward to being in touch with you all in the next episode. I hope you all have a wonderful day.